Hi, so I'm Robin from Iron and Rose, and we've got a physical shop in Shrewsbury Market Hall, online presence at ironandrose.com. We supply restaurants and bars looking for something a bit special, and we've also got a wine bar called Glue Glue on Castle Gates. And we specialise in wines that from small-scale growers who are focused on producing wines with real character and individuality and a sense of place, and who work with respect and love for their environment. I've been asked to do a small video on how to taste like a pro and why you should bother. So, taking the second part first, why you should bother. It's all about communication. As a merchant, telling customers what to expect. As a customer, telling a merchant what they like, what they don't like, that kind of thing. And that's important. What you don't like is as important as what you do like. And talking to your friends or your colleagues about wine, trying to describe it. But it's very personal, and because you can't just say it's blue or green or whatever, you have to compare it with other things. So you have to taste like your grandmother's attic or gooseberries or cat's pee or whatever. That's cool. But it has to be based on a kind of a shared experience. So there are a few basic building blocks like tannin and acidity that we can talk about. We'll talk about later when we come onto it. But basically, fundamentally, it's about talking about something that's a shared experience in terms of flavours and tastes and all that kind of stuff. So for me, to move on to the first part, which is how to taste like a pro, it's a 4-part process. And bear in mind, you're not allowed to drink until I say. So the 4 parts are look, you smell, you taste at last, and the last part, the 4th part, is to think about what you tasted. So first thing is you take a nice big glass, ta-da, and you pour some wine into it. Ta-da, you can't see that, can you? But there you go, I'm pouring my wine into it. Cool, right, so you don't want to pour too much wine into the glass because we're going to do a bit of swirling shortly. And you need to leave a bit of space for air, and you need to leave a bit of space for oxygen and for stuff to go on in the glass. I'll just move my monitor a bit so you can see me a bit clearly. And this is a white wine, as you can see, no clues there. And so the first thing is, so there's 4 parts: look, smell, taste, and think. First part is to look. Now the colour can tell you a lot about wine. As we've noticed, this is a white wine. It happens to be Müller-Thurgau from Trentino Alto Adige, so up in the north and up Dolomites. But with a white wine, if it's dark, deep in colour, it tends to be maybe a bit older, or it's been aged in oak barrels. Lighter, brighter wines tend to be younger, maybe haven't spent so much time any time in oak barrels, and make you think they're going to be a bit fresher. A wine that's kind of got a really deep golden kind of colour might be a sweet wine. And with red wines, they tend to be more kind of full of colour, deeper, darker colour when they're youthful, and also linked to grape varieties. So some grape varieties like Pinot Noir have really thin skin, and that's where all the colour is. So the wines tend to be very pale. But wines like made from grapes like Malbec, which grown up in the high in the Andes Mountains in Argentina, they tend to have very thick skins, and you get a lot of colour. So you end up with a wine that's really deep in colour and kind of impenetrable. And red wines tend to get paler as they age, whereas white wines tend to get darker as they age and oxidise. The other thing to do is you can swirl it around a little bit and you have a look at the legs. This is kind of like the tears that can form on the side of a glass. And you can kind of see there's a kind of viscosity to it. And that's linked to the alcohol content. And also it may start to make you think how it will be in the mouth as well, how it will feel in the mouth. So the wines with a lot of legs on the glass tend to be kind of smoother and richer in the palate. But it can be kind of slightly misleading. The next thing is clarity. So traditionally, people are taught that wine should be clear and bright, but it's not a natural state for wine. Wine is naturally slightly hazy, slightly cloudy. People do all sorts of things like racking and fining and filtration in order to remove kind of haze and stuff. But the more you do that kind of process, the more you potentially strip out some of the character of the wine. So a lot of producers that we work with at Iron Rose and Glue Glue, they choose not to do any fining or filtration, but maybe just to do quite a bit of racking from vessel to vessel in order to produce a wine that is clearer but not necessarily totally haze free. And that's fine, that's cool. We're quite happy with a bit of haze in that wine. it can be a bit unexpected because everyone kind of like everything you buy on a supermarket shelf is always clear, really, and that's the way people have been taught that it's faulty if it's got a bit of haze, but actually it ain't so. Sometimes you get little crystals in. That's tartaric acid, tartrate crystals. Normally, and that's cool. Can look a bit like broken glass, but generally speaking, it's not. But let's be cautious. But not in that case. Anyway, still haven't allowed to taste it, but you're allowed to smell now. So, doing a bit of swirling. And the reason to do swirling like this is because it makes you look quite professional, and look like you know what you're doing. But actually, the real reason is because when you stick your nose in the glass, and as long as it's a nice glass like this, it's good shape, you can swirl it quite vigorously. When you stick your nose in the glass, the aromatics are all sitting in the middle, in the centre. So you put your nose in the glass and you inhale. And the smell tells you a hell of a lot about wine, because smell is a massive part of your sense of taste. And so it'll remind you of things like fruits, like spices, some weird things, whatever it reminds you of, whether it's forest undergrowth or hedgerows or roses or, whatever, that's cool. And it will bring up memories too, because smell has really strong contact with memory in your brain. So it will remind you, in wine case, it might remind you of a particular occasion where you drank wine with somebody or in some kind of place. But often it's that kind of immediate kind of connection. So if you smell a Sauvignon Blanc, which has a very characteristic kind of gooseberry, grassy aromatic, it kind of triggers that memory in your brain. And you think, oh yeah, I recognise that. That's kind of like Sauvignon Blanc. Anyway, so there you go. Next, finally, you're allowed to taste. So I don't know why I do that before I taste, but I always swirl it before I taste as well as swirling before I sniff, but there you go. Now, that gurgling thing is a bit grim, and you wouldn't necessarily want to do it at a dinner party. But like I was saying earlier, your sense of smell is a huge part of your sense of taste. And what that swirling, the gurgling thing, where you're sucking in air, basically, it draws in all the aromatics into the olfactory bulb at the back of your nose. So you get a second hit of all those aromatics that you smelt initially. So you get another hit of the gooseberry, aromatic, nettley kind of thing you get from Sauvignon Blanc, or you get kind of the berry fruit and the red berry fruit and the spice and cinnamon and stuff that you might get from a red wine. Normally, if I was doing this for work rather than on a Tuesday evening for fun, kind of, then I would spit it out, because you taste too much, you drink too much, you get pissed, you make stupid decisions, and you fall over and you make a fool of yourself, and it all goes horribly wrong. So yeah, normally I would spit it out. So that's the other reason why you do that inhaling the slurpy thing, is because when you swallow something, normally the warmth in your throat kind of makes all the aromatics kind of bubble up into the back of your olfactory bulb, so you get all those aromatics again. But if you're spitting it out, then you don't do that. So the kind of inhaling does that for you instead. And it's not the same experience, but it's kind of similar. And once you've done it for a while, you kind of get used to it, and you do pick up more, I guess, than you would do just necking it. Anywho, the other thing you pick up when you taste the wine is stuff that you can't smell. So you can't smell sweetness. You might smell something, you might make you think it's going to be sweet, like melon or honey or things like that. But that can be slightly misleading. But you can't smell sweetness, but you can taste it. You can also pick up acidity. So that's a really important, sweetness and acidity, a really important building block to the wine. Bitterness, so sometimes you get some bitter kind of twang to a red wine particularly, which is really nice, like astringency, things like that. And you also feel things like texture. So in a red wine you'll feel some tannic texture, which is that kind of furriness, which can be quite aggressive and a bit much. And maybe like a young red wine particularly can be very tannic and very kind of quite difficult and really cool to a bit of food to have with it, something like that. But also, you also get more subtle textures, like a chalkiness to them. Sometimes, especially in white wines that are not being finely filtered, you can get lovely kind of pithy kind of texture. and it's really gorgeous. And you also pick up length of the wine. Some maybe heard of people talk about this wine is really long and goes on for hours. But that's a sign of the quality of the wine, I guess, and the concentration in the wine. So a wine that is longer tends to be a wine that has there's a bit more complexity to it, a bit more going on. And I like wines that have length of flavour, because that's it's what you're paying the money for. It's a wine that has a lot more things going on. And then the final part, the fourth part, is to think about the wine. So what did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Do you think it's typical of what you thought it was going to be like? So this is a Müller-Thurgau from northern Italy, which is quite an aromatic grape variety. So it's kind of quite grapey, like white flowers and things like that. And because it's from the Dolomites, it's got this nice kind of thread of acidity that runs through it, because you get quite hot days but then cool nights. And it's quite long, and it's got like a minerality to it, which for me is like a kind of almost a stoniness to it, like which I find quite attractive, and it kind of gives the wine balance, Because if a wine's just too kind of heavy and fat and alcoholic, with no acidity, then it's just fruit juice, and it's pretty pointless. And also it doesn't go very well with food. So maybe it would remind you of something. So maybe you had a Sauvignon Blanc from the Loire, which tend to be very mineral, very kind of direct, very kind of pure. But then you have a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand, and they're very grassy, very aromatic, very nettly. And you kind of think, this is much more like this Sauvignon Blanc from South Africa or wherever it is. Tastes much more like this one that I've had before from such and such, and therefore I like this one because it reminds me of that. Blah blah blah. Another thing is, will you buy it again? Do you think it was worth money spent on it, or your mate spent on it? If you convince them to spend it for you, buy it for you. Would you look for something similar? Say maybe you tried it's like from a grape variety you've never heard of, like Bobal or something from southern Spain. You'd think, I really like that Bobal. I must look out for other Bobal. So that's the kind of the fourth part. So there you go. 4 parts. Why bother? So you can communicate. Me as a merchant, to tell my customers what a wine tastes like and why they might like it, or why they might not like it too, because we sell some quite funky wines, and I'm quite aware that sometimes people are going to find them a bit too just unexpected, I guess. So I think that's a really important part of kind of the way we communicate, and by talking about wines and say like an orange wine, it's really austere, and it's kind of like, we love it because such and such, but you might not like it because of such and such. And your communication, with your friend saying, I would like this because it was really fruity and juicy and crunchy and blah blah blah. But your friends might like something that's really oaky and serious and heavy. And then the thought process, you look at it. What does it tell you about the kind of colour and the legs and the clarity? Then you smell it. You give it a little swirl. You smell it, and you pick up lots of character in the glass, like the white flowers and this, and such as honeysuckle, and then you can taste it, and you do the weird sleepy thing, or you don't if you're in company. Probably best. Oh, I should tell you about spitting in a minute. If you're going to go to commercial tastings and you're going to be doing a lot of spitting, it's worth practicing beforehand. Dribbling is really bad. Don't dribble, it's grim. Equally, spitting too forcefully, equally bad. Goes everywhere, a lot of splashback, not nice. So it's worth actually practicing spitting. You can do it with water, not compulsory to do it with wine, it's more fun, but it's just, you're always spitting into like some kind of receptacle, they often have big kind of bucket kind of things to do it, and so it's quite cool. But anyway, that's a little aside. So we've got for us tasting. Tasting, you pick up the things you can't smell, but also you get a reinforcement of the things you did smell, like the fruit flavours and the characteristics. And you pick up the textures, the tannin and the chalkiness and the pithiness or whatever. And then the final part, you think. Anywho, I hope you've enjoyed this slightly crazy video with my lockdown hair and all that going on. And thanks for watching.